I'm going to be showing you one I absolutely love. It is extreme, over the top, and if you wanted to, it could easily be modified to be perfectly wearable. So the regular nail part of it could be done on its own, and it is a layered earth, so it's got different dimensions to it, different layers, really rich colors. Again, could definitely be worn on its own, and it is so pretty. And then if you turn the nail to the side, underneath we have a spinner, which I personally love doing. We have a spinner that is the reduce, reuse, recycle, the little 3 arrows in a triangle that spin. On the back of them, we have different pieces of recyclable material. So it's just a very earthy, very earth awareness design. It's one of those that, again, wouldn't be wearable but could be modified. So I hope you love it as much as I do. I like to make an Earth Day video probably every year. I try to, and so I will put links to the past ones in the description box below. So if you are interested, check those out, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
So we are going to begin by getting our nail form onto our practice nail. If you ever have any questions on nail forms, this one I'm doing in a style of a like an invisible or a hidden apex, which is something that you don't normally see, and it's not something I would say is very wearable, but boy, does it look so sleek and so cool. And if you want to know more about form placement, especially if you're doing a hidden apex, I will put a link to a video that I have that is all about hidden versus American apexes in the description box below. If you've never watched that one or you've never heard this term before, definitely give that a watch. It can be so helpful just to getting the form on if you want to do something crazy like this nail. Once we have a layer, I'm using gel to actually sculpt my enhancement, which if you guys watch my channel, you might be like, gel, who are you? But I'm using gel to get that layered effect. So we're going to have a very thin layer of a sculpture gel, just kind of getting the shape of the nail, just getting it, the extension kind of based. After that's done and cured, I applied a coat of dark blue, and then using a lighter blue, I'm going to gently swirl it in. So we've got the dark blue on the nail completely, and then almost just sort of tapping that lighter blue on top to give the texture of the nail, or the color of the nail, a little bit of texture, so it's not just so smooth. I'm going to flash cure that, and then I'm going to add another, just a little bit more of that color. You can just flash cure and add another coat because the coat is so thin, since we're basically removing most of it when you're tapping it out. After that has been fully cured, I'm going to apply a layer of builder gel, and I'm using a BIAB just to make it a little easier. It's one that's almost empty. I'm going to really try to build up the middle of this, not terribly thick, but enough so that once it's been cured, it's got that thickness to it to provide these layers that we're going for. After that's been cured, so you have clear gel, blue, clear gel. So we've got the blue is going to be our ocean, and then we've got another layer of clear gel, and then the continents on top of that. So after you have that, I'm going to start, actually it looks like it's black, but it's a very dark green. I'm going to be just kind of working in the bases of my continent. So I have the bottom of North America, then I have Central America about in the center of the nail, and then just the side of South America. And you don't have to be perfect about these. There's going to be clouds and stuff on top, so if it's a little bit inaccurate as far as the shape of your continents go, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Like, it's not going to be Satan. It's, for the most part, you're just kind of getting the idea of where they are. If you wanted to completely make up different places as you go, that's fine too. I'm going to add some different colors of greens to this, some brown tones. As you're getting your colors out, I would get a dark green, a grass green, kind of a goldenrod type of a color, an olive green, and then if you want to, some shade of brown that's like a chocolate type color. And then use those colors to just add some depth, some dimension, and some different locations on the land portion. So I'm going to go in with that goldenrod type color, add some of those spots. The more color you add to this, the more that layered effect is going to really come alive. So you don't want to just try to do this easy and go with a blue background and then some green land, and then call it good or call it done. You really want to add a lot of different color to this, a lot of variety, and actually just kind of have fun with it. There's so many different colors that you can add, and there's so many different shapes that you can paint in. You can add some different lines for mountain ranges. There's so many things you could do. Look at some earth view images, look at the way that, the earth looks, get some ideas, and then you can paint whatever section of the earth you want on here. After you're done with your land, then you can go through with another layer of that clear builder gel. You really, at this point, you want to build up that apex area. That middle of the nail, there's going to be a divot in this nail. So as you can see, you really want to fill that in. You want to float the gel to fill that space in. After you're done with that, you're going to want to take your white gel, and you can use a gel paint or gel polish. I would probably steer you towards a gel paint over a gel polish just because it'll hold its shape a little bit better. And we're going to mix it into the inhibition layer. So the builder gel that I'm using cures with a very, very thick inhibition layer. It's very slimy feeling. It's that sticky layer. Sometimes Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't as much. If yours doesn't, you may want to add a little bit of like a blooming gel or something on top of it to give that kind of slip to it. After you have that done and you've melted in some clouds, not all the clouds, melt in some of the clouds into that inhibition layer, cure it, and then we're going to cap it with another layer of builder gel. This one I'm using is a little bit thicker and holds its shape just a little bit better. After that's been cured, then I'm going to take the form off, I'm going to cleanse this nail, and I'm going to file it into shape. As you're filing this nail into shape, you may notice that some of your details get filed away, especially right on the sides. If there's anything where the clear gel layers were thick, or, just thick enough that as you file it to make the nail the right shape, you might kind of file away some of the things that you painted in. If that's the case, don't fret. It will happen most likely after you apply a coat of, this is base coat. I'm going to apply a coat of gel base coat over the whole nail. Again, this just provides a little bit of an inhibition layer, a little bit of a slip, so that once you start adding your clouds in, which I'm doing with wet, so I have wet gel base coat, I'm going to start melting in a second layer of clouds. As you can see, they look like they're floating even higher above those first clouds. Find any spots where you may have filed away your details and go ahead and stick a cloud on top of them. Again, no big deal. Just go through, fix them up with another cloud. This nail actually is easier than it looks because the rules are pretty free as far as what you're doing. This line has to be exactly like this. There's some fun and some freedom to it. And as long as you kind of use the right sort of shapes and the right colors, it's going to look exactly like it should. After you're done with all that painting, go ahead and apply some gel top coat, and this nail is done, and it looks so fantastic, and you could certainly leave it just like that. If you want to go big or go home and you want to just absolutely make this thing a showstopper, draw an arrow on a piece of scratch paper, lay a nail form backing on top of the arrow, and then with some green acrylic, we're going to be sculpting that arrow shape. Make sure that the straight portion of the arrow is incredibly long in comparison to what you might normally do. You want it to be plenty long enough that you can fold this arrow up and over on itself so that it gets that shape that we're looking for to make this recycle symbol. Once you've made 3 of those and you have all 3 and you can line them up, you're going to put the point of one arrow over the end of the other arrow, forming a triangle. Just like so. After you kind of have them all placed so that you make sure that they do fit together nicely, you're going to want to take a little bit of clear acrylic and you're going to start essentially gluing them together. So you're going to want to maybe use a tweezers to assist with this process, but just put a little bit of clear acrylic down on the end of one of the arrows and then pick up the next one and just set it on top. You want these to nest together so that they kind of go up and over each other, which at the end you can see you might have to pick that last arrow up and around. And so you want to do all of these pretty close together so that you have enough movement before the first bit of acrylic sets too much. After you have that done, string 2 bar beads onto a piece of wire. So bar beads are just a little bit wider so that they really hold their shape well. After you have those, you're going to glue them onto the back of your arrow. So you're going to glue one right on the bottom straight edge of the arrow, and then the other one will go right in the middle at the top of the peaked one. Hold those in place while the nail glue dries, and then after that's done, you can apply some clear acrylic up and over the beads to hold them in place. Make sure you wait till your nail glue dries before you try to put the clear acrylic on top of them, or you're bound to get nail glue into your acrylic brush, which will ruin it real fast. Bend the top of the wire into an L shape, and then you're going to glue a bead onto the end of the other side. So on the bottom, it's got a bead. On the top, it's got that L shape or that right angle. After that has been done, you're going to attach the L onto the underside of the nail. So you're going to just hold that piece under there. I'm using clear acrylic and I'm just going to have to hold it until the clear acrylic grabs. If you're using a slow setting monomer such as a low odor, that'll take a while. If you're using something that's a fast setting like a competition or a 3D monomer, it'll go really quick and it won't be that big a deal to hold it. Then add another little bit of a clear acrylic up and over the wire to make sure it isn't going anywhere. Now, on a nail form backing, once again, we're going to be sculpting all of the little pieces of recyclable material that we are saying, world, go ahead and recycle these things or reuse them, or just do your best to not be so gluttonous and wasteful. And so we're going to start out, I'm going to be making a newspaper. This is one of those things that is almost a dinosaur. Very few people actually read a paper newspaper anymore. And they're actually one of the things that I find personally in my own life the easiest to reuse. I always used to, when I had guinea pigs, I always used them to line the bottom of my guinea pig cage, which made it so much easier just to keep everything clean. And then you're reusing them. That's kind of the big thing. If you use something once and then you get rid of it, that's when things become problematic. So the next one, I just sculpted a rectangle. It's a little bit thicker. That's going to be for a notebook. And then with some red acrylic, I'm going to be making a soda can. Just different things, and I stopped drinking out of, say, plastic water bottles. And I know that there's so many people that are doing things like that. I love it when I see a water fountain that has a bottle refilling station built into it. Those always make me so happy, and they're becoming so much more prevalent than they were. I mean, just a few years ago was the first time I saw one. And so those things are all so fantastic. And there's so many things like that, you know, if everybody just did that more often, it'd be so helpful. So you have a little bit of silver on the other ends of our can. And then using that silver again, we're going to be taking and we're going to make just another little end. That's going to be for the screw-in part of a light bulb. And it can be really quite small actually. So just kind of pat that from side to side. And when you're picking out your recyclable materials, you can do anything you want. You can make things that are, say, compostable items like fruit and veggie waste. You could do recyclable materials. You could do trash. There's a lot of different methods to when I was looking at getting some inspiration for this and what I wanted to do as far as what type of items to include. And I eventually decided just to include ones that are readily kind of the thought of ones, the obvious things, bottles, cans, light bulbs, paper products. But like I said, compostable items would be really kind of fun to make if you wanted to do something along those lines. And there's just a lot of different ideas. The light bulb, light bulbs aren't recyclable. They are something, though, that is kind of in the spotlight, no pun intended, but in the spotlight just as far as being waste conscious, because LED bulbs are so much better for the environment than incandescent. And I have an electrician for a dad, so we've been using LED light bulbs for basically since they came out. And just in that terms of, you know, you don't usually see incandescent light bulbs. There are a few circumstances. My chameleon, he needs to have a heat lamp, so those are not LED. But otherwise, as much as you can, any of these things, if you can use them, if you can switch something out, even if it seems small and insignificant, if everybody does it, it makes such a big difference. And I know that I have so many videos where I preach these types of things, and I don't know that it really is going to make any difference, but I feel like at least if I say something, it's better than saying nothing. So if you're suffering through this and you're like, I know, I do what I can, and you're like, lady, just be quiet, I'm watching a nail video, I don't need to be lectured, I apologize, but it's in my nature and I can't help it. So after we have that light bulb done, we're also going to be doing a bottle. This could be a plastic water bottle. This could be, I did mine in almost like the shape of a beer bottle, and I'm going to be painting it in a moment with some brown jelly textured gel, which will kind of really push that beer bottle thing, you know, it'll really look like that. Just because, so when I lived in California, and I was on the California coast for quite a while, and I saw so many beer bottles on the edge of the ocean. When you look at a beach, there were beer bottles everywhere and cans. And so whenever my brain goes, we're going to make something about recycling, or, you know, push that type of an idea, I always remember that. It always like just flashes back to me all of those beer bottles specifically. Yes, there were also a whole bunch of water bottles, and there were, you know, cans and everything else you could think of practically. But the beer bottles stuck out to me just because they're glass. And, you know, if they break and they hurt they're just, drove me absolutely crazy. So we're going to we're going to sculpt a beer bottle, and then we're also going to make a box. And this is something else I just want to say. If you've ever purchased anything from me or won something from me and I've sent you a box, you're going to notice that it is a reused box. I get packages in the mail with some frequency, just because it's kind of the nature of my work. I get sent products to review, products I have to purchase and replace that I use on my clients, and things like that. And I think just in general, the whole world is becoming shipped instead of don't go to a store anymore. But, well, at least to an extent. So we're going to be doing a box. I reuse my boxes all the time. I use them for all sorts of things. And so if you ever buy something from me, you will definitely notice the boxes are reusable. If it's something small and nail related, you're going to be getting a Madam Glam box. They're so great. I love their boxes. So there we have it. I added a box. We've got the newspaper going on there, the little notebook. We're going to be placing down that beer bottle, which at this point could be anything, and also the light bulb. I put the little filament, I painted the filament on the back of the light bulb with black, and then I applied a little bit of gel top coat so that the acrylic paint wouldn't be worn off before I attached it. Then I'm going to attach it with some clear acrylic. add the can on there, just place those little bits all around the back of this. After you have that done, then we're going to go through and we're going to be adding a little bit of shading to the front of our symbol, the recycle, reduce, reuse symbol. So just wash a bit of darker green paint over the part that is behind the arrows because they're folded up and over. That'll just reinforce the depth that is in there naturally. It'll just make it look a little bit more 3D, a little bit bigger. After you have that done, this part is optional because sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. I'm going to be writing reuse on one of the arrows, recycle on an arrow, and reduce on an arrow. So we're going to go through and do each one of these. As you're painting them, you may notice just that each word gets a little bit longer, and so you may have to try to balance your spacing a little bit more for each one, especially when you go through and do recycle. So reuse is only 5 letters. That's pretty easy to fit on there. And then when you go and you do reduce, you have 6 letters, and you're thinking, that's going to be a little trickier. Just really work on your spacing. If this is the first time you're really painting words like this on a nail, it's probably going to be tricky. If this is something that you're used to, you just have to really pay attention to what you're doing because it can get to be a little bit easy if you paint the reuse first to think, oh, I've got plenty of space, and then go through and be like, hey, wait a minute. I don't have nearly as much space as I was thinking on these. And then when you get to recycle, you really have to be careful of how much space you're using just because, you don't have as much space. So as you're painting the letters that can be more narrow, like the L, don't make the line on the bottom of the L too large so that you don't have room for your E's. And same thing, the E's can be made a little bit more narrow, the C's and the Y a little bit less easy, and the R a little less easy to shrink down in width. But, you just gotta, shave a little bit off the E's and the L, you should be fine. Going back through on the other side, we can add some details to all of our little recyclable pieces as much as you want. If you don't want to do any details, honestly, I went back and forth countless times on whether I wanted to put these pieces on the back of the recycle symbol at all, just because I was like, do I want to keep this just really clean and bright, or do I want to add, those extra little bits that almost add some chaos to it, just because they're not the same, they're not symmetrical, there's, 6 different little pieces. Do I want to, do that? And so if you decided to skip them, you would just have the back of the recycling symbol, which would be, perfectly fantastic. It will look just as cool from the back as it would from the front because of the way that the pieces are made. There's not like it can only be viewed from one side type of a thing. But if you do want to make these recyclable pieces, you are going to want to add some details to them. You can keep it simple if you want, but especially on something like the newspaper, you can't just leave that light gray. You need to add at least something to it. So I'm going to write the word news across the top of it. And like a weirdo, I put this on upside down when I was gluing it down. So my news is going to be upside down. But honestly, a lot of times the news feels a little upside down. So after we have our little news written down on there, if you have extra space and that didn't take up everything, I would add a couple just little quick squiggle lines to represent writing. You don't have to do anything. I wouldn't write actual words or try to be too specific with it. Keep it a little bit on the easy side for you. Add a couple details to everything else. You don't have to go too crazy with it on the notebook. Just to really drive home that it's a notebook, I'm going to be adding the white writing portion that sometimes goes on the top, especially of composition books. And then after that's on there later, I will write notes on it just to, be a little bit hitting the nail right on the head. I'm going to write cola across the can. Again, I'm not trying to, point fingers at any specific companies whatsoever. And then after you have all of these little details done, you have all of your pieces painted and finished. Really the last thing that you're going to have to do on this at all is apply some top coat. One thing you could do is if you wanted that spinner to be temporary, you could have taken one of those bar beads and attached that to the underside of the nail, kept the L shape, and then you could just slide the L into the bar bead underneath the nail and take it out and put it back in whenever you wanted to so that it wouldn't be permanently on there. If you wanted to just make it a little more wearable, and the nail length itself could really be any length. This style of that layered earth could be done on short nails, long nails, medium nails. You wouldn't get quite as much of an effect if it was a shorter nail because you couldn't build up as much thickness in that hidden apex, but it still would be really, really cool. And you could definitely get some of that layering. I'm going to be applying some gel sealer on things that need to have it. such as the two things that already have some gel products on them, which would be the beer bottle and the light bulb. I'm also using a 3D glaze, which is going to leave a satin type of a finish, so it's not as shiny as gel top coat, but it is definitely shinier than matte top coat, and then matte top coat on everything that should be matte, especially that newspaper and the box, those and the notebook. Those paper products really should have a matte finish to them. But you can decide what needs what finish as you go and just kind of, have fun with it. There's so many options with this. I hope you guys like this design as much as I do. And I'm sorry that it's not actually on Earth Day. I had a horrible migraine that night and just could not get this uploaded. But I hope you love it, and I will definitely see all of you next time. Happy belated Earth Day, and I can put some links below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.